Hello everyone and welcome back to Forge Modding tutorial series. Today we're gonna talk about item functions and item properties. And first of all, we're gonna start with the item properties. That's the thing we used back in the item tutorial to add the item group, and we can do even more with the properties. And for that we can make a dot, and then you see what you can do with those settings or properties. You can, for example, set a maximum stack size, or you can set a tooltip. Actually, it's pretty self-explanatory what each and every method does. Just keep in mind that you can use those to define the properties. And today we're gonna take a deep look at two functions, which is the rarity and the maximum, or no, not the maximum stack size, that's self-explanatory, but the default maximum damage. Default maximum damage, that what that does is it adds an item damage. So for example, if you have a sword which has, like, for example, a stone sword has 100 damage, so you can make 100 hits and then it will break. So that's the damage thing. You can set the maximum damage, so we can set, for example, for the sword we would set 100 for 100 maximum damage, but now we'll set like 20 for our item. So after 20 uses it will break, or not uses, but if we decrease the damage by 20 it will break. So we will take a deep look at what that does later on. And the second thing is the rarity. Actually, I'm not sure what that does, but as I'm assuming it does take enum, and that's enum rarity, which you can set, where you can set the rarity of the item, like is it common, is it uncommon, is it epic or not. And I would say we'll try to set it to uncommon, because that, if I remember correctly, that changes the color of the, okay, I can look into it, but it should change the color of, yeah, of the item, or the item name, if I'm correct. So that's pretty much it for the properties. As I said, you can define tooltip, or I don't know, set to no repair, maximum stack size, things like that. But they are not important currently. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a look at the deeper functions of an item, and for that we're gonna hit control and space, which gives us some, a big list of functions, and those functions we can override them, so we can change what functionality each function has. That gives us, a good set of functions to work with. The most used functions are actually the on blah 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 functions. So for example, on drop by player, on item, on entity item update, such things, because those are actually some kind of event handling. So if blah 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 happens, then this function will be triggered. Today we're gonna take a deep look at one of those functions, so that there are many functions, so you can just look around what you can do with them and what they actually do. That's normally displayed in this, in this window here, so you can see what those functions do, called to trigger the item's innate right-click behavior to handle when this item is used on a block, for example, or I don't know, on block destroyed is pretty self-explanatory, called when a block is destroyed using this item, return 2 to trigger the use item statistic. Yeah, those things explain what this method does and when it gets called and stuff like that. So now we're gonna take a look at the on item right click method. That's that one here, and that we need to return something here. So we need to return an action result. For that we need an item stack, because you'll see that new action result. If we get back the new action result, we need, first of all, we need an enum action result, which is an enum action results. We have three options here: pass, fail, or success. It's pretty self-explanatory again. Does this action fail? Does it pass? Or does it succeed? We're gonna take success here. And the second thing we need is an item stack, as you can read here. And for that we need to get the item stack from the player. So that's the current held item stack. And for that we have the player. We get the player from the method, so we don't need to worry about anything but the player. And there is there's a method in it which is get item stack. Or no, it's get item held. Get held item. Get held item enum hand. And there we can pass in the enum in which hand, either in the off hand or in the main hand, is this item currently. So we know which hand this method is triggered from, and there we get the stack from. So that returns an item stack. So that's the current stack which is in the hand of the player. So I'm not gonna dive into the Java language features here, but that's pretty much it for the basics here. Now we can do whatever we want in this method. So proceed when you right click on an item. For example, with I don't know, what are good examples? You can, for example, with a sword, you could block in all the versions. For example, there were some things you can do on right click, or I don't know. There's some good examples like water buckets, for example. They're just items which you can right click, and then they're placed water block in the world. So that's what we're gonna do too. We're gonna set a block, but for that actually we want to check on which side we are. And by side I don't mean like a team or something, but the actual side in terms of server or client. So we can check whether the world we are in, from which this method is called, is a client world or a server world. Because, for example, updating blocks, you don't want to do that on the client world. This will lead to strange behavior and is probably not efficient at all, because that's something that is handled by the server side, so by the back end, not by the front end, you know. So we're gonna check that. For that we do an if branch and check whether the world in, which we'll get from the method again, is remote. So for a client world, this method is set to true, and for a server world this is set to false. So we're gonna, if we want to check whether this is a server world or not, you can use is remote. Server world is false, so we're gonna quickly invert that. And now this is invoked if we are on the server. Now we can set a block. We'll do that quickly. We'll set block stat. That's the method to set a block. Or actually better to say a block stat. That takes two arguments. One is a block position and the second is a block stat. The block position is actually just a position in the world, and we want to set a block under the feeds of the players. So we're gonna take the player position. Yeah, position is probably, so you can do anything with the player or get the position elsewhere, but this is a common thing to do, for example, or set it to the look vector, so where you're currently looking at. Player in gap position. Now we want to set it underneath him, so we need to call the down function, which gets the block position but one underneath the block position. So it's basically the block position minus one on the y axis. And now we need to pass in a block stat, which we can get from the block. So we need to pass in block stat here, and then we want to set, for example, a diamond block, which is diamond. I know how to write diamond, not diamond block. Now get default stat, which is important because we need the stat of this block. For example, if you have a block which has facing properties, like a furnace for example, then you have to define which facing it has to actually get the stat. It also has a default stat, of course, but that is always the north facing. So yeah, you want to probably get another stat there. And that's pretty much it for setting a block underneath your feet. Now we can do some other things. They're pretty funny. And now we get to the point where we don't want to have this item used over and over again, so we want to let it take some damage actually. So there is, you can set the damage of an item stack. So item stack dot set damage, that sets the damage. Remember, we have set the default maximum damage to 20. So if we set the damage, we can set the damage here, but we can also just damage the item. So that's damage item init amount 1 entity living base, that's the player here. So that damages the item and basically damages it by 1. So can use it 20 times until it's broken. That's basically it. And now we can do some other funny thing with the player, for example. We can, for example, let him jump. That's pretty funny. And we need to do those things on the server and client side, otherwise this will be horrifying. You need to fiddle around a bit with that, because sometimes you need to just do it on the server side, just on the client side. That's some fiddling around here. And we want to reset the fall distance so that the player doesn't get much fall damage. We set that to 0, so that should do it pretty much. Now we have an item that sets a diamond block underneath our feet. That's this one, and that gets broken after 20 uses, and which lets the player jump. And this will actually be some kind of flight jump, because you jump and jump and jump without checking whether you're over the ground or not. So let me quickly show that to you. La la la. that works, and now it is yellow because we set the rarity to uncommon. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And you cannot stack it now. That's the old items. You cannot stack it because of we set the maximum damage to, yeah, that cannot see that the damage is actually, so game mode. Oh, that's new. Game mode. Oop, survival. Fuck's sake, survival. Okay. And now you can see that the item breaks at 20 uses. Yeah. Pretty neat. Thanks for watching. See you in the next videos. I hope I could help. Cheers!